September 10th, 2024 meeting to order. Ms. Markowski, all board members are present and accounted for. If you all would be kind enough to stand with me and say the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time we're going to have a special presentation.
All right. We have a special recognition for several people in the audience today and also the board. As you guys know, we built a tremendous tennis facility on the Jeff High campus. About 6 to 8 months ago, it was nominated to be the best educational facility in the United States with the USTA. We ended up winning that award. We were one of, I think, maybe 3 or 4.
There's thousands throughout this.
Yeah, there's thousands that were nominated, but I think there were only 3 facilities or 4 facilities throughout the country that actually won the award for best new educational facility in the United States. So it's a great accomplishment, not only for the designers, the builders, the managers, but also the school board in terms of your support for our students and our community. So we wanted to acknowledge that here tonight and thank the people that were involved in that. The first one is Jamie Lake. Let me make sure I get the right one. Jamie Lake, who was the designer for this project, who did a fantastic job designing this project, and we want to thank you. And here's a plaque to show the hard work that we put into this. We want to get a picture here in a second. So. The second group that we want to recognize is Core Construction, who helped us manage that project and did a fantastic job with their work on this project. And our next group who helped construct the project and did great work on it, was great to work with, great partner, and that's AML Construction. And then finally, they've been a long-time partner with us and also did a lot of work on the facility, and that's the Perfection Group. We want to thank them. Right out here in the middle, get a picture.
Can we do all the GCCS side just because the way our board is a little bit rough when we go to share it?
And I also have one more for the school board.
Yay!
You all want to get in the picture? You just want John to do it? Okay. All right.
He's the pretty one.
Here.
Oh,
yeah.
Look at Trisha. And everybody smile. Suck your bells in. All right.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
That's a handsome group.
Did you guys all wear green on purpose over there?
Oh my goodness.
I mean, it's not your fault each other.
Thank you all. While we'd love to have you stay, you certainly don't have to stay for the rest of this board meeting. As long as that's your get off the hook invitation. So
I think that it's
certainly. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
All right. First time up, if your dog chooses to stay. First item up will be the approval of the agenda as presented. Board, I move that we approve that. If I can please have a second. Thank you, Ms. Mustaine. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed and abstaining. Next would be the approval of the regular board meeting minutes, and I would move that we approve those as presented. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed and abstaining. The next would be public comments. I don't believe we have any of those, and we now have a wonderful, riveting budget presentation.
And And snacks.
And snacks.
And snacks, yay!
Hold on.
Here come the numbers.
I'm really trying to be really, I'm so known for that. So this one,
Presented all the state things, you must be ready. Who else could do it?
well, I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah, come on, maybe.
all right, board, here we are. My sixth presentation to you. Glad you hung in there with me. We got a lot of recognition tonight that is significant for your future. And so I'll make sure I point those out in a very key position, but I want to let you know that we're going to start off with, we always talk about how the board is very unified, and you're creating your own data. I had data before I came here about a unified board in which you accomplish when you are supporting that mission, which is make sure that we do right by our kids and get money in the classroom. So you have seen the fruits of your labor by the partnerships that you've done, the building enhancements that you've done, all the renovations, the buildings that you need to house the students that are coming, which this budget will show the significance of that. And your administration team as unified. As you can tell, we're here because we're fighting for all the money we can from the state of Indiana. Because the next year is going to be very interesting because we have several things that are going to be happening between now and the beginning of next school year. And those are very obvious. So we'll cover that too, the impact of what that might be. So let's start. Your schedule is tonight. We're actually doing the budget presentation tonight. You're seasoned veterans now, and we don't have to have so many workshops prior to this point, so we're going to cover it tonight. The two things is that later on in the regular meeting, I will be asking permission to advertise, and that will be posted on the gateway, which is the public site that everybody knows to go to when they're looking for information about budgets for schools. We also graciously post it on our website as well, so that way people can look to see when the public hearing is, where they can make a comment on the budget, and when the adoption is. These are regulated by the Department of Local Government Finance, and so tomorrow everything will be posted so people can see that, and they're already looking for it, so those are the regulations that we apply. If you follow along in your book or on, your book will have way more information, as we know. But you can follow.
Okay, Ron.
Or you can follow from the presentation. So in the book, we're on page 2, which describes the funds. And I'm going to go through those one more time. Although you understand them, I want to make sure that anyone that's listening does really understand who governs and makes the decisions on how to use funds where. Okay? So your education fund is state money. Comes directly from the state of Indiana, has the biggest impact. House Bill 1009 kind of runs those funds, and that's what your legislation always goes to talk about how much money we're giving to schools. Okay? That's where we pay teachers from. So again, when people say, we're building these buildings, you should be paying teachers more, well, the first thing is that we are, but within the restraints of what the legislation has us do with their money. Okay? The buildings are what we go and we do studies for that and the operations fund. So we cannot use that money to pay teachers. It is strictly for your building, because that's what we state it to be. And you'll know that when Matt comes up and does his presentation today. Your operations fund does have max limits that affect it, okay? This takes care of the operating of the school district, your property insurance. We have those, your utilities. There are salaries for those that are not in the classroom. So, you know, we have areas that we pay. This is where we pay our facilities management team. This is the things that we mow the lawn to repair certain things. And what affects this fund the most is the circuit breaker, which is where there's a tax cap. Those words are used interchangeably at 1%, 2%, 3% for a variety of properties. Residential, rental or farm, and commercial. Okay? So there is a limit that you can ask for on that, and you can't go beyond. I mean, that is in the Constitution. But in addition to that, in order to help escalating tax rates, you can only ask for a small percentage from the previous year, which hits an average of what you always do. We're able to get about 4% every year from the level we get the year before to now. So there's two impacts on that restrain it. So therefore, we don't have, this is a fund that we're going to pay a lot of attention to. We do not have a lot of capability to grow that fund and maintain all of our buildings. This is not unusual for us. It is not unusual for any school district, because they are then resorted to borrowing money to make these repairs on these huge buildings that have our kids in and our staff. So that's how we then pay very close attention to our debt service. Great news here, some congratulations to the board. You paid off a major debt, pension debt. Been for a long time, we've been paying on that thing, and it also affected your operations fund, so whatever rate I was able to get, I had to decrease it by the rate that the pension fund was. So now that's paid off, and now I can go where I need to go with it. So that's why we're going to pay attention to this, because now we're going to be in a good position to start implementing replacement plans and plans that, that we see that are going on in the district. And we'll probably start with a plan after we get the majority of our buildings taken care of, things such as these nice parking lots that we're doing. If we keep up with them, we're working very closely with Perfection on that replacement plan, so you get to do what you do every year. Right? So those are the kind of things that we're really paying close attention to the operation fund. Your debt service fund is the borrowing that we do, and then of course your rainy day. Now, a rainy day is very important because every time we talk to a legislator, they want to know, do you have a rainy day fund? And so we know over the course of the years, this size district should be no problem to have a certain dollar figure in there. And we agreed once we hit, about $10.5 million, that we can continue to put in there so we can continue to grow that. And if we ever need that, and that's helped us quite a bit, because if we ever had to pay for something and then get reimbursed, that money is sitting there helping us with that. So it is very important, very vital, but it's part of the budget process, and you have to ask for appropriation if you ever need to spend money out there. So that's part of the budget process. So we're all up to speed on these funds now, even though it looks like we went from 5 funds down to 4. There's a little legislative kicker that now we're going to put in there. It'll be exciting, John, for you.
Hurry.
Yeah. Here's your exciting. Let's look at this one. If you go back to 2018, you could see your cash decreasing to a crashing point in 2020. We changed the world starting 2020. And all you see is growth here, and that's what we should be at. Okay? So at the end of 23, when we get ready to do our fiscal indicators that is required by the Distress Unit Appeal Board, because they're governing us, governing all of what activities are going on in the state of Indiana, making sure that we are still financially and fiscally responsible. They're responsible for watching all schools. If you don't, they'll come tell you, right? And then they implement rules for you to follow. So we want to show the DUAP always that we're responsible, okay? We are doing a fine job without their rules with us, okay? So I can congratulate the board. Moreover, I got to congratulate the business office the HR department, and of course, Dr. Hartledge's leadership, because it takes all of it for us to get here, okay? The HR department is very conscious of our staffing and salaries, which is more than 90% of all your budget, your education fund, salary and benefits. So they're constantly monitoring that, constantly keeping a tab on that. Dr. Hartledge is responsible for our grants, and any grant opportunity she gets, she's definitely doing our human capital, salaries, and those kind of things to make sure that that pressure is off the education fund. So we can put more money into the mission, which is more money into the classroom, right? So that's how come we're very, very unified in this. And as reported in June, I built the budget with cash balance of this for the rainy day of $10,630,000, up from $2,300,000 in 20. The education fund, I built the budget with a $9,883,000, up from, I think they were at the they were at the $94,000 in 20. And this budget is built for operations with a cash balance fund of $9.3 million, up from the $108,000 in 2020. So you have made significant gains as a united board. Here's your data. Okay, so if anybody has any questions, your constituents have questions, you work very hard, really very diligently to get this there, because if you look at the executive summary, I'll let you peruse it at the end of your book, there is a statement in there that says the board is committed to fiscally responsible books. You've got a balanced budget. Proud to tell you you have a very balanced budget, and we're going to continue to do that. We always want to show some growth somewhere, and we'll have really good news about that here in a short second.
She just keeps keeping us on our toes.
I'm going to keep you on your toes, because I don't have any jokes, I don't have any financial jokes to make sure you're paying attention. Okay, so, so this budget was built on an average between 10,225 students down to 10,200. Last year we did see an increase in the February counts. Our first count is October 1st. The second is February 2nd. Right? So I have to balance that formula. I need enough students there to give us enough appropriation, which is different than cash. Right? You have $10 million in the bank, but I'm about to ask for $80 million in appropriation, and we'll explain how we get there. So, good news. Yesterday's numbers came out. We have 10,398 students. Okay? So if I was able to build you enough budget off of a 10,225 student to get you to 80 million, you will be able to show growth in your financial responsibility by having more students. We'll be able to continue the mission by, supporting all of our staff, not just our teachers, but we have a lot of staff that contribute to the success of this. And so we'll be able to continue to grow. So that's the good news of that, because I can always get you appropriation that you want. Doesn't mean that you should spend it, but we do it in a controlled manner to plan for the future. That's why a 5-year plan is important. If we're going to build buildings, I got to be ready, right, for that growth. So I'm very proud of that. I probably owe these people coffee on that, because they probably worked very hard tonight to make sure they really got it. On this one, it's a little hard to see on the screen, but you want to know how much money we get per student, $7,300. We didn't see much increase in this formula. You will see the amount of $6,681 in the foundation. That's standard across all schools. Every school gets that amount for students. Virtual is a lesser percentage. We don't have that many virtual students, but if you go to Virtual Academy, you get $5,600 in your foundation. But we do qualify for complexity of $628. Now, over last year, that difference, last year we got $622. So we got an increase of $6. If you look at 2024, last school year, you can see in foundation, we had 6,590, we up to 6,681. So that difference is not a big jump. And I point that out very hard on this because there's several things that are going to be happening between now and our next budget session, between now and the next school season. We will have legislation come in. So we have election in November, and it'll have a big impact on how we're going to go. All of our associations are trying to hear what's coming from the camps of what people want to do, trying to decipher whether they're campaign promises and that they will be able to get them through, or if there's something that they need to truly handle. Always language cleanup, that's traditional. But we're really watching the borrowing and tax situation. Okay? That seems to be the pulse of everything. We have maintained that $1.10 tax rate, period. We have not gone, you qualify for way more, you know, but we know with a plan and a controlled approach to this, we don't have to change that tax rate. And I'll show you the history on that. This also is the new biennium. So we've got all these concerns, but in the biennium is when they actually take a look at the formula. Can we give you more money? What are we going to do with that education money there? What are we supporting? We have to be very careful. We are being very conservative in that world. If you kind of look, even though our appropriation went up, you'll see how conservative I am because the state had a big $1 billion deficit in their welfare, Medicaid plans, okay? And they're gonna have to make that up, just like we would have to make that budget. You know, they have funds too. So we'll have to be very conscious of that. We definitely will have all our associations. Superintendent definitely speaks to our local legislation about how we need to make sure we continue to fund our programs. And so, you know, all other schools are really going to fight for that. And so, you know, this gives you an indication like the complexity of $6. We're thinking that we may not even see the increase. Now, one word was set called reset. We're really in tune. IASB was really in tune with that. That's the Indiana School Business Officials. Because last time we reset, in 2009 and 10, that's when they switched everything. Tax rates came off the taxpayer. Everything went to the state, and they did it instead of distribution to the schools until everything got set up. So we're going to find out what that really means in their mind when they say reset. So we're more concerned. I am more concerned about that and really getting your budget is going to be balanced and ready to move forward. But depending on what happens there, we got to make sure that we still always tighten our belt. We're used to that. We've been doing that. You know, is there anything that we can give up? We're constantly looking at that. Are we not utilizing something? If we're not utilizing a piece of software, we have no need because now we've got something better. Well, we're going to get rid of that. Are we implementing enough information out there for our businesses to support our academies? They work real hard on that. So we don't intend on losing any programs, but we're going to pay attention to what legislation is going to do. And that'll have a direct impact on everyday life. But you are in a very good position to handle anything with that. I know that took about 5 years to get you in. Okay, in your book on page 6, you'll see it better. You can see where I have projected revenues. You know, sometimes we do get miscellaneous revenues into the education funds. We're going to talk about this one first. You know, the goal here is to keep our programs competitive. What we offer to our kids to make them the best and cross that stage as the best, which means we have to have the best teachers. So we're still investing in them. That was the focus. Our costs have increased in special ed. Our special ed population has increased, and the depth of their needs have increased. So I paid attention to that. Our English language learners also have increased, and the depth of their need has increased. So I paid attention to that in the education fund. I always build this fund on lower revenues and higher expense. Okay? If I do the lower revenues and we have an increase in students, then your revenues then do help protect you. Okay? So, what I can tell you is that the $87,161,500 from the student formula will probably increase because we're going to have that extra 200 students, right? And we're going to make sure we did add teaching staff this year in anticipation of an increase. So we're staffed where we need to be. Now, have all positions been filled? We're constantly working on that. That's why we have a good HR team. Although they did a fantastic job. We had some retirees that we had to replace. So we brought in a lot of teachers. So this fund will be very well protected. And you can see how I break down the expenditures here at the bottom. And you can see that I'm going to be transferring again, and then ask for an increase of $11,500,000. That'll equate to a little over 12%. We're allowed to go up to 15% there. You're allowed to go as high as you want. You just get on a naughty list if you go past 15%. And a lot of schools are in that situation, absolutely, because their insurances, their utilities, their buildings, their facilities are outdated, and they're really struggling. So really proud that we're going to stay underneath that. And as the revenue increases, that percentage will go down. So if that 87 million is going to go up, well, that 11 million percentage will go down. Okay, and it's of the formula. Remember, we're also required to meet a threshold of 62% of the formula of the 87 million has to go to salary and benefits for teachers. Teachers in the classroom. Okay, so you know that you're led by a teacher, superintendent-wise, who I think is pretty significant impact to the education of our students. The director of education that's sitting next to him that is responsible for the education of our students, and they're not allowed to be counted in that. Okay? So it's a challenge. It's a challenge. But thankfully, because we are investing into the teachers and looking at those raises, we do hit that 62% because we're allowed to count the benefits. Now, when you take a look at our graphs here in a few minutes, you're going to see how much money I do commit of the appropriation and what our actual expenditures come to with that, and that will show you that we definitely, if you are getting 90% or more in your budget, A, that's normal, B, you'll get to 62%. Benefits are expensive, they're valuable too. All right. Here's one little caveat. You're like, Laura, last year you asked for like 69 million, and now you're jumping to 80 million. Okay. In actuality, we got approved for 76 million in that fund. Okay. And I'm going to go up to 80 million, about $4 million difference. Legislation has required us to take the taxable rental fund. So when you look at the treasurer's monthly report that has all the funds, it has little reds that we do little reimbursements for our grants, you have that taxable rental fund. That cash has got to be transferred into education fund by December 31st. So I'll do that on December 31st. We also get an amount from the state for curricular materials. And so that's about, it can range between 1.5 million to 1.9 million for us, depending on how much appropriation they have there. And let me say, remember the 1 billion in the home. See where I'm thinking it's going? All right. That money will also be receipted into the education fund. So on your major fund monitoring report, that will show all that cash in there. So I had to build appropriation in case I do ever need to buy products outside of that. Now, Dr. Hartledge's area takes care of a lot of Title I, material, so the ESSER took care of a lot of things. Our technology, Mrs. Bauer and I worked very diligently on her budget. Talk about somebody tight, she's one of them, so she's real tight with her budget, so she plans on replacement values for technology. So we pretty much got a handle on that, and we should be okay. However, I still will budget a smaller amount, just in case we need to lean in on that money. But in your treasurer's report, I will still keep that separate. And how I will do that is I will put it in its own fund that actually mimics and crosses right into the education fund. So I need to see it separate. So you'll see it Fund 102. So on our report, it says 101 Education Fund. You're going to see one that says 102 Textbook Rental. But when we do all our state reporting and our fund monitoring report, it'll be all together. I have to do that for you, so that we can see what's going to be like on our form. So here's the summary on page 7. The advertised budget is $80,500,000. Our advertised revenue is $90,266,000, of which $5 million does belong to your textbook rental fund. Plus, I'm going to subtract out of that cash, that revenue, because $11.5 million belongs to the operation. So your net revenue would be $78 million. So I have no problems getting that $80,500,000 appropriation approved, because if the DLGF knew the net, so they're going to see the 90 minus the 11, that's all they're going to see, plus our cash balance, that's why it's important to have a cash balance, will get you the $80 million, right? So if we ever have to have more teachers, we're planning on growing. I hope next year I say I built this budget on 10,400 and we have 10,700 kids. So that, because I have to hit half of the school year in a budget. So that means I'd have to take care of new teachers from August or July to December of the next budget. So that's why it's significant to keep that cash balance there. Okay? All right. In your book, you have like an account detail. You'll be able to see the account numbers that we do charge to and how that appropriation is broken down. This is always just an estimate, because if I have to create a new account and charge something, at the end of the year, you do a resolution to transfer appropriation. And so this is an estimate. I start with where we had appropriation last year and expenses. We're on page number 8. That's in your book. Alright? So that's like a detail of your appropriation. Next few pages, this will be the summary here. You will see how I've got the programs appropriated between salaries, benefits, and services, supplies, all the things it takes to run a classroom. You can see what that is. But if you skip to page 13, you can go back through the detail at any time, because you will see how I came up with the appropriation of $80 million. On page 13, you will see in 24, we had salary and benefits committed of appropriation of 89.73%, and all other, which is like supplies, is 10.27%. Now, when you come down and you're saying, well, you're asking for way more appropriation, I'm still keeping the percentage the same, because I'm conservative, but that money was obviously committed the same way. So we have 9.79% to salary benefits and 10.21% to other. You see where I'm shifting a little into salary benefits, because those always go up. Now, if you ever want to know what our actual expenses end up being, if you do go through detail, it has the little graphs in your book, and it shows, it has the little thing across the top, says salary, benefits, services, supplies. In 23, previous year's full budget, we spent about 95% on salary benefits. all others was 5%. So that goes to show you that we commit to the true payment of the classroom, right? Sound benefits for teachers. Anybody that takes to run a building, run a classroom, instruction. Any questions on the education fund? All right, we're going to move to the operations fund. If you take a look at page 14 in your book, a reminder, this is how come some of the money out of education, the general fund, goes into operations, because now that fund, new name, takes on your bus replacement, your transportation costs, your capital projects costs, and just general operations, which used to be in the general fund. All those had to be combined. I keep this sheet in here because it would be funny for you to know that even though stuff is going up 30 to 75%, still 100% in their costs, we know that because we're doing projects, that in 2018, right before this got combined, we've only increased our appropriation each year by 2.5%. Okay, that's the impact of your circuit breaker, that's the impact of max growth that you're allowed to do. So I think we're doing pretty good with that handcuff or restraint of maximums that we put in there. Since 2018, it's almost 10 years ago. Just in the past 3 years, we saw this cost of living, we've seen everything go up, salaries, benefits, products. So just kind of want to point that out, right? And so we have increased the appropriation for this fund and the cash balance for this fund on purpose because we know what things cost. So that's what we've done in the past for 8 years. The next fund is very similar to the education fund. You can see where our property tax revenue is projected to be $21 million. Our other local taxes, that's local income tax, and that's also excise tax, financial institution tax. Those are the things that CVET, which is commercial vehicle tax, all that comes into this fund. You get a portion of all of that. You also see the transfer into that fund is $11.5 million. That's the transfer out of education into here. And any other miscellaneous revenues. And that probably will decrease because we still have students that pay for restitution on any books that they do. Sometimes we get just various revenue sources that come in that are small, rental, those kind of things. So that fluctuates quite a bit. You see I went way down from the previous year because I wanted to make sure that we can grow this fund at the right pace. If you go all the way down, you will see that I'm asking for appropriation of $30,938,000. About $1 million more than last year. What I wanted to do is protect this fund in a certain way without really knowing what our circuit breaker was going to be. They give us an estimate of $6 million. And that's been coming in a little bit less than that. And I want to make sure that we don't spend more than that, right? And still maintain a cash balance. This fund will probably grow next year. If we give this fund, this size district, if you think about the buses Daniel runs, that's a lot of buses. That's a lot of gas, that's a lot of fuel, that's a lot of people. And he does a fabulous job of dividing routes, minimizing those fuel costs, those kind of things. And very commendable. And he stays well within his means, but we are at a point where we're having to replace buses. And we've done that in our plan, in our 5-year plan. That's where you see we're doing that. This fund right here needs to get to, I will be very happy if we get to $35 million with these constraints that I've got. It takes time. So in 2020, you were operating on a $19 million, just kind of give you an indication how far off we were. And realistically, if we plan on shifting in a continued repair, because these buildings don't go away, just like your home, you always have to do something, The ideal would be for this size district, would be easy, 35 to 45 million, anywhere in that range. You know, if we were allowed to grow the way that we were supposed to fund what we need, we would be able to do that. But we're gonna make it a goal and try to get as close to 35 as we can. It's better than what we were, than the $19 million. So right here, this sheet right here, number 16, you will see all the data I just told you. The advertised budget of $9,938,000, and advertised revenue of $35 million. I know that probably our second grader will come in about $5 million, but the DLGF is recommending $6 million, minus your 11.5 transfer from education, that's in there, sorry, and your miscellaneous income. We got $15 million tax revenue. Okay, so from 21 minus the $6 million, $21 million in the property tax minus the $6 million circuit breaker nets you the $15 million. Right? The other revenue, the 11.5 coming in, those two added together are $26 million, plus our cash balance gets us to the 34. So that, let me say that again because I want you to visualize it a little bit, because that means just because you have appropriation doesn't mean that you're spending. That's how come I say no, right? Now, if I have the cash and extra revenue comes in and we need it, of course I can. So, we got $10 million in cash, right? You saw that earlier. You're gonna get $15 million net property tax. That's $25 million. Plus your $11.5 million. So that puts you about $36 million, right? We should easily get $30 million. But I don't want to cut into your $10 million cash balance. So technically your revenue is going to be the $11.5 million plus the $15 million. So kind of saying that if our percentages keep going down of the education fund, I may come back next year and go to 12 million to transfer. Because we need to make sure we take care of this money. With me on that so far? Of course, pages 17 through 21 is the detail of that 30 million, what programs I have it supported in. Most of it, without a doubt, and increased, is our facilities and buildings and grounds. That's where your costs are. You have the buildings. Never forget that even though we just renovated them, we still have to take care of them, right? So that's the most. We did, when we renewed our, if you recall, we renewed our property insurance. We did see a small percentage increase considering our claim history. We may not be getting that much in the future. Just kind of give you that warning. I have to be ready for that. Okay. Some cases we got about, I think it was a 5% increase in our premiums on our property tax, or property insurance, property casualty, umbrella. Most schools are seeing 18 to 30%. So I mean, even if you look talking the private sector, they're even increasing. They probably can even talk about their insurances. And in order for these companies that serve us well, to stay in business, they're going to give their customers, not just us, that take on as well. So that's why we need to build this. Insurance of the future work. For our health insurance, which is some out of operation and some out of education, we're going to have a meeting with our teachers and talk about a rate increase. Our claims are good for right now. We always want to be ahead of that curve because we're never going to go 1.2 million in the hole. So we'll be able to recommend to the committee a 1% increase. The lowest I heard in health insurance increase in the state of Indiana was 6%. The highest was 22%. doing good things here. We just got to keep going. So, page 22, last year I appropriated 78.4% other, which is your buildings, your property insurance, and salaries and benefits is 21.59. 25, salary and benefits of appropriation committed is 20.35, and all other is 79.65. So it is nearly an 80-20 split. That's of appropriation. All right, that's how much committed of that 30 million. So that went up. So don't be surprised that when you see your expenses, that'll change. The buildings and facility management and insurances will go up, and salary benefits will go down of true expenses because of the cash that you're actually going to be able to spend. Okay. Right, here's your favorite one. On page 23, can we talk about the good news first? Pension fund paid off. The other one's good news too. So, one of the things I always admit is where I want to be wrong always, right? I want to be wrong on the number of students I build a budget off of. And clearly I accomplished that. That was fantastic. But you want to be wrong like I was wrong. 10,225, and everybody works their tails off and getting these kids put in, counted, they're sitting there, they're eating, blah, 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 and they tell me it's 10,000, almost 400 kids. That's the kind of run rate. This one is nearly impossible to ever hit, okay? This one always gives me heartburn because you always have to advertise high. And the reason we've talked about this, the reason why you advertise high, we commit to the $1.10. Without a doubt, I can show you, I can do that. But you have to put your information in so that you're above that. So that way, other influential factors such as property values, which can go up, you can go up, or go down, and it can stay the same. So no matter what, I want that tax rate to be there so that way I can bring it down to $1.10. So after a lot of study, a lot of discussion, a lot of like, oh God, man, I'm just sick, I said, okay, I'm just gonna go for it. I will get that tax rate up there. I'm gonna advertise high. You will see it here at the very end of this presentation. And I'm gonna go 8% on the assessed value over from last year. All right, Laura. Well, gosh darn it, they come in at 8.11%. We're excited about that, right? We have the growth, and you're gonna be able to see what your tax rates are right now because I went and plugged those in to show you about where those are at, which includes our borrowing. So in your debt schedule, here's a list. You're going to see where we're going to be paying some debt off on here pretty soon. So our students is very aware of that. They make sure that they know that in the future, so that way they know how to set up our repayment plan. So that way I do stay to that $1.10. When you go through your book and the forms in the back, you are going to see a line in the debt service schedule of $22 million that we're going to pay out $22 million. That's where I increased that line, advertise that high rate, which is only $1.55 because that's what you're really entitled to. I bring that down so it's going to cut something at $22 billion. It's reduced to handle the payments for any borrowings that we do in the future. Okay. Easy peasy. Your rainy day fund is not tax based. I do not advertise the tax rate to it. I only ask for appropriation for that. We have $10,600,000 in that fund, and I am only asking to potentially use $5 million in 25 in case I need it. But I always reduce that twice, so you will meaning you will do a resolution when we adopt the budget, knowing that that's coming, and at the end of the year, you will actually get the real number. Because let's say I may need to use 100,000 of this, and you'll reduce appropriation of 4,900,000. What I cannot do is put more than 10% of unobligated cash that represents our budget. So not more than 10% of your budget of unobligated cash. What we've been doing, we've been doing that in June and December. All right, page 26. You can see where your rates were kind of all over the place in 17, right? Way low, went to $1.13 at one point, almost $1.14. Went down, it's all over the place. We have consistency with continuity, we have the plan, we know what we're doing. So you can see the $1.10 all the way across, guaranteed it for 24, and I'll guarantee it for 25. Our assessed value last year was $4.4 billion. Our new one's gonna be $4.8 billion. The number I used for this budget was $827,522,197. I'll get to talking billions all the time, excuse me. The actual assessed value is $4,832,469,148. So when we get ready to advertise the budget, get permission to advertise the budget, you will see for operations, I'll be advertising at .4379, so roughly a 43-cent tax rate for your operations. And for your debt, you're gonna see a $1.11. Added together, it's $1.55, not the $1.10. But when all that gets settled, and they check all my numbers to make sure there's plenty of eyes that are on this, but the LGF is the blesser of it all. They will plug in that new rate, just that difference between the $4,827,000 to the $4,832,000. They'll plug that in, right? So higher the assessed value, the lower the rate, so that'll naturally come down. So when I say, okay, this is what they're entitled to, they have no issues, no problems, then I say, LGF, thank you, but we're gonna go lower with the rate. And we will cut, you will see operations will go down to 42 cents roughly, right? There's always rounding, so I just kind of do this roughly. And debt will be about 68 cents roughly, which will take you to the $1.10. In 24, we got an assessed value increase of 6.7%. If anybody thinks that we shouldn't be building buildings, our property value went up 2% more than last year. We are trending higher than what averages usually happen. 3 to 4% has been happening for years. We are growing. We have to be able to accommodate. We have builders that are building homes that are going to bring us children. So we have got to be prepared, and we don't want to wait until our schools are busting at the seams and we don't have a place for them. So we will be able to do everything with $1.10, and Matt will be following up behind me to show you how that works. In the rest of your book as the forms, that will be advertised and have to be posted to the gate. Traditionally, when we get ready, the next meeting will be the public hearing, right? And then in October, you will adopt this budget, and at adoption, you will be signing a resolution transferring $11.5 million and adopting the tax rate. You will also adopt the capital projects plan, which mimics your 5-year plan with a few other things in there as they try to get them in here. You will adopt the bus replacement. We replace buses when we can and how we can. You will also be adopting a resolution to reduce the rainy day fund by $3.1 million in 24, because you have to reduce 24 to maximum 25. I don't cut that loose. The DLGF is going to say, you have $10 million in 24. It shows that you want to spend another $3 million. Okay. So I have to cut that in order for me to keep all that cash flow. if there's any questions, I will be happy to entertain that. I just want to personally think this is my favorite thing to do, by the way, all the stuff I do for y'all. But I gotta really think this integrity. They have to listen to me all the time, right, say no. And but they bought in over the last 5 years to really save this district's life. And this board bought into that too. It's commendable. It's talked about everywhere. And clearly, you can see eyes are now all on this district. This is just the start of it. And I just want y'all to keep up the good work. I know it's hard. And I know it's a long commitment. It's a lot of questions and a lot of things. But we're doing what's right for kids and for this district and for the county in whole. Everywhere we're at. I stand by that very, very much so. So I'll take any questions from anybody.
Do you balance your checkbook to the penny?
At my personal and every bank account we have in this district.
Yeah, well, I was talking about your personal, because if
Yes.
this is your favorite thing to do, I don't even take receipts. I haven't logged into my bank account in years. I just, it would throw me crazy. It's just a surprise. If I have money or not.
So the younger folks that do the Venmo and do all this stuff, right, and it's all on their phone and stuff, and it's like, you know, they do them accounts and things. It gives me health palpitations.
Yeah.
Remember those receipts, let me write it down. Not only do I write in the register, and I'm just gonna tell you the first one, I write in the register.
Okay,
and I
tax
also-
register?
Yes, I
I
do.
haven't used one of those since like 2002.
Right, and I also put it in a spreadsheet, so that way I can track, you know.
I just
To the penny.
order
If
it.
somebody, if I didn't write it right, oh, and I wasn't even penny, I'm like, and that's another thing, y'all can pick up all the pennies. See what happens when you pick up the pennies? You pick up the pennies. It's bring them to me, I'll receive them in for you.
I gotta drop $1 to pick up a penny. To be quite honest with you. Thank you.
It's amazing.
I don't think we can commend you enough and your team for your hard work. I really don't. And I'm very grateful, and thank you for making this very clear. And I know I teach you about being riveting, but I learned from it every time, and I really appreciate it. So thank you so much for that.
Well, I appreciate y'all, you know, it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to sit through. Really want to only do 30 minutes, but I can read like questions in the eyes already, you know, when I'm going through certain things. I just want to make sure because this is a big year, all the way through. So if we could lean on you when you're out there talking, you know, the campaign and things like that, it's important to talk about what is necessary for a school. And you are doing that, so I think it's important that you know what you've done. So, and it's all here, anything you need, we got it. Anybody's got a question?
All right, we're going to move this, segue this along. Greater Clark's required to hold a public hearing, preliminary determination hearing. If you desire to comment on this presentation, you should do the following, which is instruct that the comments can be made. Just raise your hand when you're recognized, come forward to the podium, state your name for the record, provide your comments, and please be seated. At this time, I'm opening the comment portion of the meeting and ask those interested in making comments to follow the protocol.
No, after.
We did the presentation.
We did the presentation.
Oh, okay. No, that's right, sorry.
You guys just cut me out.
No, you know, we just heard an hour. So,
We have more numbers?
I'm sorry. I had a run through, so please come on up, Matt, we appreciate it. And sorry about that, board, I get excited.
I know, it's so exciting.
Well, you know, I'm keep it real.
I appreciate that about you, John.
Hey, TikTok.
That's on you. Do you want me to? You want to? So, for the Matt's here to talk about the status of our borrowing, and primarily for the approved 5-year plan, which includes a new middle school and various things throughout the district. It's about $108 million that we're looking for, and we can do it within the $1.10. I just explained how to do that. So the majority of that money, you know, is committed to the middle put on there, roofing, HVAC. You got just different things inside that to continue to get everything up to speed in the district. So that's going to present that to you, how that looks over what your debt looks like and everything.
Sorry, man, I didn't mean to put you in. I apologize.
Great to see you all again tonight. I'll try to keep it brief here. I know you guys have seen these slides many times before, but here's the update as it stands today. And then, as Laura mentioned, the approval will be for $108,500,000. I'll show how that's going to fit in under the $10, just like all the other projects will fit in under the $10 for the last 4 or 5 years. So current page is all of the outstanding debt obligations of the school corporations, color-coded by the name of the issue. I know this looks like a lot of different bond issues. It is a lot of different bond issues, but given the size of this school corporation, this is very normal to have this many bond issues. See where the payments are in 24, projected to go in 25 and beyond. I will make a note, and I put down there at the bottom, so the 2024 B bonds have not yet been sold. The 2025 A bonds have not been sold, but I am showing them in this chart. Those were from previous authorizations. That's not part of this $108 million. So while they haven't been issued, just for simplicity's sake, I wanted to show them because they are authorized. They will be issued in the coming months. Okay, so transitioning to the tax rate. Laura talked through all the tax-supported funds. You have the operations fund, you have the pension funds paying this year, and then you have the existing debt service shown there in the light blue. Right now, we're showing the $108,500,000 being paid back over the course of 20 years in 2 separate bond issues. This is just for illustrative purposes. We don't know exactly how these are going to be issued in terms of the dollar amount or the timing, so this is the best guess right now. As you guys probably recall, in previous bond issues, you guys have gotten large authorizations, and then we've sold them in different bond issues. The reason for that is you borrow it all at one time, you're paying interest on all of that immediately. That gets really expensive. If you can't spend the money very quickly, it becomes a drain on your tax rate and your debt service fund. So what we've done, not only for Greater Park, for a lot of schools that are doing kind of these multi-year issues, take the money as you need it, essentially cash flow the next year. We're guessing at these numbers right now, where we've shown $50 million borrowing in 2025, should be $58.5 million in 2026. Again, these numbers are likely to change, but these are really just for illustrative purposes to show you that it's going to fit within your tax rate. So you can see payments would begin in 2026. They would fill into the $10, keep it there for the 6th year in a row. And then between the blue and the orange, pay those back over the following 20 years. You can still see there's still room moving forward, beginning in 2027. Again, we don't want to take up your tax rate for longer than we need to. A school of this size is always going to have additional projects, so we want to make sure we're staying flexible in the future to be able to come back in future years and take on additional projects under that $10 if needed. So for the Superfund part, since we're going to talk enough about numbers, I will walk through my numbers on this page, and then I will sit down and be quiet. So the resolution is not in front of you today. It will be at the next meeting, but I do like to at least present the numbers. So if there's any confusion, any questions, we can talk about them now and not when it's time to actually vote. So par amount of the bonds, $108,500,000. As we talked about in the past, that is a not to exceed number. You can borrow any number up to that number. You cannot borrow in excess of that number. Estimated maximum interest rate, 6%. If you were selling these today, you're probably somewhere in the 3.5% range. Rates have come down. We're obviously not selling these for potentially a year. Why would we expect rates to come down over the next year? We have no way of knowing what's actually going to happen. So we need to stay conservative on interest rate, really this page creates the maximum financial parameters or the worst case financial parameters. If and when we move forward and sell these bonds, we would expect all of these numbers hopefully to be a little bit better. Looking at the estimated total interest costs, that's borrowing $108 million on 6%. That's currently showing $113,965,000. We don't expect the interest cost to be anywhere near that. Again, that's based on the full 6%. If we can sell it at 3%, 3.5%, that's going to significantly reduce the interest cost that we're showing. Again, these are, of course, maximum financial parameters. Maximum annual lease payment, that is the highest payment you can have in any 1 year. That is set at $25 million. The other things that we need to mention, so current budget, pay 2024 debt service levy, the current year is $30,547,678. That results in a debt service tax rate in the current budget year of 68.34 cents. If and when these bonds are issued, we expect the 2025 pay 2026 debt service levy to increase to approximately $34,281,383, which we're estimating the debt service rate to be at 0.6756 or 67.5 cents. The reason the levy is going up but the tax rate is coming down is because of the assessed value growth of the school corporation has seen. We do not know what your assessed value is going to be for pay 2026. We won't know that until next fall. So we're using the current assessed value now. If your assessed value grows even further, that service tax rate will probably come down a little bit further. So that is an estimate. Maximum tax rate impact. I've talked about this a bunch in the past, but as a reminder, this is a statutory formula. It takes that maximum annual payment, the $25 million, divides it by your current assessed value. Does not take into account the first page where we have some of your bonds paying off, replacing with new bonds. So the formula reads that this is going to be a 51-cent impact. As we've shown and illustrated and proved on all these previous projects, what we show as the maximum tax rate impact is not what taxpayers are actually going to see. You guys have pledged to save the $1.10 and showing the net tax rate impact with the current total school tax rate in 2024. We expect that to be no change, staying at the $1.10 moving forward. Last two pieces of information, and I will get out of the way. School corporations' max annual payments as a percent of the assessed value is 8.72%. And the direct and overlap of debt, that is your debt and all of the overlap of tax districts, debt or tax units, debt as a percentage of assessed value is 10.66%. The statute just has us add those last two pieces of information. That's it. I'm happy to answer any questions that the school board may have.
Is there any kind of projection in terms of assessed value per county? And I know that's a crazy question, but
No, it's not a crazy question. It's honestly one of the most important things that you look at moving forward, right? Because that drives everything, especially when you're solving for a tax rate. So you guys over the last 5 years have averaged 10% growth year over year. Over the last 10 years, you've averaged 7.5% growth. What we've baked into our model for the next 5 years is 5% growth annually, and then we have flatlined it thereafter. Once you get past a few years, I mean, all bets are off the table.
sure.
I will just mention briefly that the General Assembly is looking at assessed values really, really closely. The Braun's plan came out and I think scared a lot of people with what he was proposing with some of these assessed values. Whether or not that happens, I have no idea. I just mentioned that to say they're really looking closely at this, and so I think this next session is going to be really, really important for assessed values and taxpayers. And so while we're baking in that 5%, there's always a chance that things are done outside of school control to impact that. And so while we expect you to continue to grow, we see the growth around here, there could be laws created or things done again, from the State House that could impact that as well. But based on what we know today, we think that 5% is very reasonable and hopefully conservative. In terms of actual projections, there is a company that looks at that. I think that it's helping more in the background do some of that. We certainly need to get that into our model as we get that information.
myself feel better.
It's not an exact science, I wish
Sure.
it was, because then I could tell you the answer.
No, I get it.
For future years.
But I think just being conservative at 5% seems like.
And if something happens, we update those numbers all the time, right? So if you start not growing that quickly, we will back that down as well to make sure. We are always going to react to whatever happens to make sure, again, as long as it's within the school's control, that $1.10 is.
Correct. Correct. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions, board? Thank you very much. Okay, at this time, I'm opening the comment portion of this meeting and ask those interested in making comments to raise their hand and apply the protocol provided earlier. If no one desires to make a public comment on the preliminary determination hearing, I now declare this public meeting ended. We will continue to move on with our regular board meeting. The next would be consent agenda as presented. Board, do I have a motion for that?
I would read the agenda as submitted.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Paul. Are there any questions or comments regarding the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained. All right, next item, moving right along, we are gifts to buildings.
Absolutely. We've got a couple big ones. New Washington Elementary received a little over $1,400 from Clark County REMC, some classroom supplies, which look really cool, especially for those elementary kiddos. $300 for Parkview Middle School from Kentucky and mental health specialists for theater. Girls volleyball for Jeff High. Jerry and Kimberly Briscoe, thank you. I should have brought my readers, and I didn't. Oh, I can make it bigger. Oh, look at that. I'm an IT. And $500 from the Christian Church for Charleston Middle School at St. Donations. And Perk's Coffee Shop, that seems super excited. Lots of donations there. And that we accept gifts to buildings in the amount of $3,208.71.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed and abstaining. Okay, next would be action items, resolutions for supplemental payments. Ms. Helton, how are you?
Doing well, how are you?
Good. Time of my life. Really? Sure, that's where I'm at. I'm sorry, I apologize.
The supplemental pay presented is to allow payment for the teacher presented for summer ESY services. The supplemental payment was discussed with Samantha Pierce, GCCS president.
Perfect. Board, do I have a motion for the approval of supplemental payments as presented by Ms. Helton?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Do I have a second, please? Thank you, Ms. Mustaine. Any questions or comments for Ms. Helton? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed and abstaining. Next would be the PERF resolution.
Okay.
All right.
As well. As you may recall, we brought to you a PERF resolution back in the spring that allowed us to open up the opportunity for our new employees to be able to choose between the PERF My Choice and the PERF Hybrid. At that time, you approved it, July 1st, that came into effect. We now have a group of employees that does not affect if they were hired between the time frame of July of 2018 through June 30 of 2024. We have a group of people who aren't able to get that election. It's a law that is something that they're just not allowed to do at this time. We are working to do what we can to change that, but while we await that change, we would like to contribute 3.25% to those employees who aren't able to make the choice to switch over, and we are asking for your approval to do so.
Well, I move that we approve the attached provision for the PERF resolution. Can I please have a second?
I'll second that. Go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Any questions or comments for Ms. Helton? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed and abstaining.
Thank you.
Okey-doke, thank you. The next would be the advertisement of the bus routes.
Yes, Board, because of the growth out in between Charlestown and Jeffersonville, not only do we need more classrooms, we also need some more bus seat space. So Daniel Borders has asked the board to approve a new bus route out in that area to accommodate the growth out there.
So big country kids out there in the big bus. Okay, board, do I have a motion for the approval of the advertisement of the new bus route?
Mr. President, I recommend the approval of the advertisement of the new bus route.
Thank you, Ms.
That's a
Burns.
motion.
Thank you. For that motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Do I have any questions or comments for Mr. Lawson? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, or abstaining? Okay, we're going to move on. Permission to advertise the 2025
Mr. Close, we have so much money, Josh is gonna want it back. Is that right? Is that not right?
I'm all right. Only two things, that's it. So, Mr. President, if I may,
Yes, ma'am.
request permission to advertise the 2025 budget as I presented earlier tonight. If you agree, I will follow the DLGF and State Board of Accounts requirements on advertising the budget for you, so that way we can have a 25 budget.
Perfect. Board, do I have a motion for that approval?
I'll not make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Do I have a second? Mr. Paul, thank you so much for the second. Any questions or comments?
Do we need any review or?
I know. My office is open at any time.
Thank you.
Hearing none, all those in favor? Hearing no questions or comments, all those in favor of the approval of permission to advertise for the 2025 budget, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed and abstained. All right, permission to change the ECA equipment purchase threshold amount.
So every once in a while, our ECA treasurers out in the building, if they have to purchase equipment, you see that request inside your board packet. They came to me because prices have gone up so much, and, it gets to be a little bit too much more, things that are $100. So I checked our current, I checked with SBOA and our current policies, and they are meeting the requirements by simply coming to you and asking that permission. Those treasurers came to me and asked if we could go from $100 to $600 if the equipment is $600 or more, to allow them to submit that to. I do not see any problem with that. I'm very confident in that. We see it, we monitor, they've audited. So it is my respectful request that the board consider this for our treasurers out in the building that need to buy equipment for ECA and extracurricular funds that they manage.
Board, do I have a motion for that approval?
I motion to make the approval.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Mustaine. Are there any questions or comments?
Yeah, so this one, won't require board approval, but the principal still has to sign.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. So they go through very similar like a big corporation. Whoever needs equipment, whether it's athletics or any division, they have to go through a request, which is a requisition, and they approve it. And then the treasurer also makes sure that the money's there before they're allowed to do it. So, and then they will fill out the form, $600. Otherwise, they're required to have that review and double check process for internal controls. This will be effective October 1st, so we'll make sure that they understand that they will probably not change their process. It's just going to the process. We'll have their time.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of the ECA equipment purchase threshold amount increase signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no abstaining. Okay, thank you very much. At this point in time, board comments. Mr. Jones, would you have anything you'd like to add to this evening to this conversation? Thank you very much, Ms. Hutchinson.
I do not as well.
Thank you, Mr. Paul.
About that budget, they go over that again.
I sure will.
Board member falls down steps, hurt badly
I do have to thank Laura for the sugar-free candy after since.
That's pretty thoughtful.
I know, I got
That's
to
pretty rough.
Anybody tell you got sugar issues, I got you.
Ms. Mustaine, would you have anything you'd like to add?
Nothing more than thank you all for all the hard work you do every day.
Absolutely. Mr. Freeman?
Ditto, but I want to add on to it. A special shout out to the Jeff I Band and its boosters for going up to the Sight and Sounds band competition up in Columbus this past weekend, placing third. Really big shout out to the parents that participated, packing up the trailers, getting all the kids organized for getting to and from the competition. That was horrendous for 5 minutes of playing time.
Oh,
Like, that's not just us, but that's everybody. So, but yeah, it's an all-day affair for 5 minutes to compete against everybody else. So big shout out to those parents and those students that participated. And also good luck to the Jeff High football team because they're playing against my other alma mater, Fern Creek High School, this Friday at Jeff. I'm only rooting for one team, so go Big Red.
There you go.
Except by me.
Did you bring candy bars for the band people?
Oh, honey buns, actually.
Oh, you're Ms. Perkins, you got anything you'd like to add to?
Well, speaking of the Jet High Band, they played the national anthem Friday night, and it sounded better than it's sounded in a long, long time. I really did. And the lights went out.
During the performance.
But during the performance, go out in the city. It was on a timer,
Yeah.
and at 10 o'clock, they went off. And we were done.
Uh-oh.
There you go.
All the silly people.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey!
Oh, no, Chris.
Chris! I forget, sorry.
I just want to thank everybody for their presentations and everything that went on tonight. That's outstanding for the awards for the folks that had to do with the tennis facility, and you all do a good job. It's great. We're really grateful to keep moving this thing forward in a really, really positive yet humble manner. So, Mr. Lawford.
I don't have much either. Just thanks to everybody that the hard work they put in on the budget, and the great situation we're in now with the budget, and then also our facilities, there's a lot of different people working behind the scenes to make this happen. You've seen and heard from a lot of them tonight, so a lot of good stuff going on.
Ms. Markowski. Anything you want to talk about that? We're selling
The craft fair?
The craft fair.
Yes, the craft fair, I know, it's 21st at River Valley, it benefits our age.
what time does it start?
It is 9 to 2.
9 to 2.
Yes, they have lots of food vendors, it benefits our age.
I see. They serve alcohol? No, I'm kidding. Just thought I'd bring it up. Is that on tape? Could you cut that out? No. I'm kidding. Ask better later, Mark.
We have a lot of participations here, Airmark's doing the.
Wristbands, you can work it out.
concession stands and all that.
All right.
It's a school.
Oh, well,
So they really-
like they make the smokers go off site? Is there any way? No, I'm kidding. I need a motion for
There's a church next door.
Yeah.
Yeah, never mind.
I was gonna say that, but then I was practicing not saying things out loud, and I'm so glad you said it.
See,
Good for you.
That makes me feel so like. And
All right.
so bad.
motion for adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Thank you, Ms. Hudson, second.
I will.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.